Montenegro is small enough to cross in a few hours, yet layered enough to contain centuries of Balkan history, Mediterranean trade, mountain politics, and modern European ambition. Located in southeast Europe on the Balkan Peninsula, it covers just 13,883 square kilometers and has a population of about 633,000 people. But its size can be misleading. This is a country where high mountains drop toward the Adriatic Sea, where old royal traditions sit beside modern state institutions, and where historical borders have been shaped by empires, republics, and referendums. Montenegro is bordered by Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, Albania, and Croatia, making it a compact crossroads between Central Europe, the Balkans, and the Mediterranean world. Geography is one of the keys to understanding Montenegro. Its name is often translated as Black Mountain, a reference to the dark, forested mountain landscapes that helped define its identity. The country has a coastline along the Adriatic Sea in the southwest, giving it access to maritime trade, tourism, and centuries of Mediterranean influence. Inland, the terrain rises sharply into rugged mountains and highland regions that historically made communication difficult, but also helped local communities resist outside control. Montenegro is divided into 25 municipalities, and its compact territory contains striking contrasts: coastal towns influenced by Venice, inland valleys connected to Balkan trade routes, and mountainous zones where clans and local rulers once held considerable power. The capital and largest city is Podgorica, the country's administrative and economic center. It is where government institutions, universities, businesses, and transport links are concentrated. But Montenegro also has a second symbolic capital, Cetinje, known as the Old Royal Capital. Cetinje is central to Montenegrin memory because it was historically associated with rulers, religious authority, diplomacy, and cultural life. This split between Podgorica and Cetinje reveals something important about the country. Montenegro is not only a modern republic with practical needs, it is also a place deeply invested in heritage and continuity. One city represents the machinery of today's state, while the other preserves the prestige and symbolism of earlier Montenegrin sovereignty. Long before Montenegro existed as a modern state, the region was inhabited by ancient peoples known broadly as Illyrians. Before the arrival of Slavic peoples in the Balkans during the 6th and 7th centuries CE, Illyrian communities occupied much of the Western Balkan region. Their world was later absorbed into broader Roman, Byzantine, and regional structures, but the mention of Illyrians reminds us that Montenegro's history did not begin with medieval states or modern borders. Like much of the Balkans, it sits on layers of settlement and identity. Over time, new populations, languages, religions, and political systems arrived, interacted, and transformed the region into the complex cultural landscape known today. During the early medieval period, the territory of modern Montenegro was divided among several principalities. Duklja roughly corresponded to the southern part, Travunia lay toward the west, and Rascia proper was associated with the north. These were not modern nation-states, but regional political formations shaped by dynastic power, geography, and the competing influence of larger neighbors. Duklja in particular is significant because it became one of the historical reference points for later Montenegrin identity. In the medieval Balkans, authority was fluid, borders shifted, and local rulers navigated between Byzantine, Serbian, Venetian, and other powers. This period created the political foundations from which later Montenegrin territories and traditions would gradually emerge. By the 14th and 15th centuries, the Principality of Zeta emerged as an important predecessor to Montenegro. Zeta occupied lands around and beyond present-day Montenegro and became one of the names most closely associated with the region's medieval development. It existed in an era when Balkan politics were becoming increasingly fragmented, especially as the Ottoman Empire expanded into southeastern Europe. Zeta's story matters because it shows Montenegro's position between larger forces, the inland world of Balkan principalities and the coastal world of Adriatic powers. The territory was never isolated. It was constantly shaped by both mountain autonomy and maritime influence, by dynastic struggles and by the pressure of expanding empires. From the late 14th century to the late 18th century, large parts of southern Montenegro came under the rule of the Venetian Republic and were incorporated into what Venice called Venetian Albania. This was not the same as modern Albania, rather, it referred to Venetian possessions along parts of the eastern Adriatic coast. Venetian influence left a strong mark, especially in coastal towns through architecture, administration, trade, and Catholic religious networks. The Adriatic coast linked Montenegro to a Mediterranean system of ports and commerce, while the interior remained more strongly connected to Balkan highland traditions. The result was a country with dual inheritances, maritime and mountain, Mediterranean and Balkan. The name Montenegro began to be used for the country in the late 15th century, as Ottoman power expanded across much of the Balkans. The Ottoman Empire ruled or influenced large parts of the region for centuries, but Montenegro's mountainous terrain and local organization allowed it to maintain a distinct position. After falling under Ottoman rule, Montenegro gained semi-autonomy in 1696 under the House of Petrović-Njegoš. This dynasty first governed through a theocratic system, where religious and political authority were closely linked, and later through a secular principality. That unusual path helped preserve a strong sense of local identity. Montenegro's mountains were not just scenery, they were a political fortress. The 19th century was decisive. As Ottoman authority weakened and nationalism rose across Europe, Montenegro sought broader recognition as an independent state. Its independence was formally recognized by the great powers at the Congress of Berlin in 1878. This was a major diplomatic milestone, because international recognition transformed Montenegro from a semi-autonomous mountain principality into an acknowledged European state. Recognition also placed Montenegro within the wider balance of power politics of the time, where empires and great powers redrew maps and negotiated influence. In 1910, Montenegro became a kingdom, marking the peak of its pre-World War I statehood and giving royal form to a long struggle for sovereignty. World War I changed Montenegro's future dramatically. After the war, the Montenegrin kingdom became part of Yugoslavia, joining a larger South Slavic political project. For much of the 20th century, Montenegro's identity was therefore tied to Yugoslav statehood, first in the interwar kingdom and later in socialist Yugoslavia. This period brought modernization, infrastructure, education, and integration into a broader federation, but it also complicated questions of sovereignty and national identity. When Yugoslavia began to break apart in the 1990s, Montenegro did not immediately become fully independent. Instead, it remained linked with Serbia, and the two republics eventually proclaimed a federation together after the wider collapse of Yugoslavia. Montenegro's modern independence came through a referendum in June 2006. After years in federation with Serbia, voters chose independence, and Montenegro reappeared on the map as a sovereign state. This moment is central to understanding modern Montenegro because it was not the result of conquest or imperial collapse alone, but of a political process centered on public choice and international recognition. Independence required the country to build and strengthen its own institutions, manage its own foreign policy, and define its place in a changing Europe. Since 2006, Montenegro has balanced national identity, regional relationships, economic development, and the long-term goal of deeper integration with European structures. Today, Montenegro has an upper-middle-income economy that is mostly service-based and still described as being in late transition toward a market economy. Tourism is especially important, supported by its Adriatic coast, historic towns, and dramatic mountain scenery. Internationally, Montenegro is a member of the United Nations, NATO, the World Trade Organization, the OSCE, the Council of Europe, and the Central European Free Trade Agreement. It is also a founding member of the Union for the Mediterranean. Since 2012, Montenegro has been in the process of joining the European Union. That ambition reflects the country's modern direction, a small Balkan state using diplomacy, reform, and strategic location to secure its place in Europe's future. If you found this helpful, Please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.